The silence in the chamber was not an absence of sound, but a presence. It was a dense, weighted quiet that pressed in on the occupant of the restraint couch, a pressure as tangible as the cool, conductive gel that coated his skin from neck to heel. Elias Thorne had been in this silence for a duration he could no longer measure with any certainty. His internal clock, once a source of professional pride, had been deliberately broken by the cyclical, seamless nature of his confinement. There was only the low, subaudible hum of life support and the brighter, sharper thrum of the machine that was his constant companion, his tormentor, and he hoped, his salvation. The machine was an arch of polished, bone-white material that curved over the couch. From its apex, a crown of crystalline needles and shimmering filaments descended, terminating mere millimeters from his scalp. He did not need to see it to know its shape. He felt it in the marrow of his bones, a low-grade resonance that was the prelude to every session. He was humanity's first, and perhaps last, envoy to this place, to these beings. His mission charter had been simple and harrowing. Get captured, get interrogated, and if necessary, deploy the final sanction. He was a weapon, and his warhead was contained entirely within the 3 pounds of wrinkled gray matter the machine was so intent on mapping. Across the room, separated by a pane of what looked like solidified shadow, Zilok monitored the readouts. The Glirin interrogator was a creature of immense grace and fragility, its slender, six-limbed form moving with a liquid economy of motion. Its skin was the color of mother-of-pearl, shifting with subtle iridescent patterns that communicated its emotional state to others of its kind. A silent, honest language. Lately, Zilok's skin was a constant, troubled shimmer of violet and gray, a pattern of deep professional unease. It adjusted a floating crystal control, refining the resonance frequency of the psychic probe. The data streaming from the human mind was perplexing. Not chaotic, not resistant, not shielded in any way a Glirin could comprehend. Most sentient species, when subjected to the probe, erected formidable psychic barriers, walls of pure ego, mazes of logical fallacies, ramparts of raw, terrified emotion. They fought, they screamed in the silent language of the mind. They tried to hide. The human did none of these things. Its mind was an open door, Zilok keyed a communication panel. Supervisor Kalen, I am commencing the next cycle. Log entry follows. Kalen's voice, devoid of the empathic shimmer of a face-to-face Glirin exchange, was flat and resonant through the comms. Progress, Zilok, we need progress. The high concordance is not known for its patience. Subject remains, receptive, Zilok stated, its own voice a series of soft, melodic chimes translated into the harshness of universal grammar. The iridescent gray on its skin deepened. Overly so, there are no barriers. It is like staring into a placid ocean. I can perceive the surface, the shallow thoughts, the sensory data, but the depths, they are there. I feel their pressure. But they are not being hidden. They are simply waiting. Waiting for what? Kalen's tone was sharp with skepticism. For us to grow tired and release it. It is a primitive, a bipedal mammal from a gravity-heavy world. Its psychology should be a simple equation of survival and procreation. Find the strategic data. Find the location of its origin system, its fleet deployments, its defensive capabilities. The surface thoughts are useless. Have tried to bypass the passive layers, Zilok reported, its slender digits dancing over the controls. The hum in the interrogation chamber intensified. Inside Elias Thorne's mind, the sensation was like a warm tide rising. Each time I attempt a deep probe for strategic intelligence, I am redirected. Not forcefully. It is more like an invitation. A current that guides me away from the target data and towards something else. A memory loop, a defense mechanism. No, Zilok said, the word coming out softer than it intended. It feels curated. Yesterday, it was the sensation of sunlight on its skin after a period of cold. The detailed qualia of flavor from a cooked piece of animal muscle. The sound of water striking leaves in a forest. These are not defenses. They are distractions, offerings. Refuse them. You are the interrogator, Zilok. You control the session. Plunge past these trivialities. We did not build the empathic resonance probe to catalog a primitive's pastoral fantasies. Respect, supervisor, that is the issue. I do not feel I am in control. The mind is not fighting me. It is leading me. There is an intelligence here that does not operate on the principles we understand. It does not resist, it yields, and in its yielding it directs. I will make another attempt now. Severed the comm link, focusing its full consciousness on the task. It closed two of its four eyes, the traditional Glirin method of entering a state of deep concentration. Its own mind, a part of the Glirin collective consciousness yet individual, reached out through the machine, becoming a tendril of pure inquiry. It bypassed the shimmering surface of Thorne's awareness and dove. Immediately, it was not in the cold, sterile facility but somewhere else. The memory was achingly vivid. Xyloc was Elias, was a child, small, weak, with scraped knees. He was sitting on rough, splintered wood, a dock of some kind. The sun was hot on his neck. Below his dangling feet, dark water lapped against weathered pilings. In his hands he held a glass jar. Inside, a dragonfly, its wings a kaleidoscope of fractured light, beat itself against the transparent prison. He could feel the frantic, tiny impacts through the glass. The child, Elias, was not angry at the dragonfly. He was not trying to hurt it, he was fascinated. He watched the frantic, desperate struggle for life, the sheer, mindless panic. He felt a strange counterpoint of emotions. A faint, detached pity for the creature, and a powerful, swelling curiosity about the moment its struggle would cease. What would it look like? How would the light fade from its multifaceted eyes? What was the precise texture of the boundary between life and its absence? He held the jar, watching for a very long time, feeling the sun on his back and the tiny, desperate heartbeat of another creature's terror in his palm. Xyloc recoiled, pulling its consciousness back with a psychic gasp. The iridescent patterns on its skin flared in a chaotic burst of sickly yellow and violet. It stumbled back from the console, its breathing apparatus cycling rapidly. That was not a pastoral fantasy. It was something else. To the Glirin, life was sacred. All life. They were, by evolutionary design, symbiotic filter feeders who had evolved in the vast, placid oceans of their homeworld. The concept of holding a lesser creature captive for simple, detached observation of its death throes was not just alien. It was a violation of fundamental logic. A pathology. Why would the human offer this memory? It wasn't strategic. It wasn't a defense. It was a piece of a puzzle. A single, unsettling tile laid on a vast, empty board. Kalen's voice crackled back over the comm, impatient. Report Xyloc. Struggled to regulate its breathing to smooth the chaotic colors on its skin back to a professional gray. I encountered a childhood memory. It was disquieting. Disquieting how? Was it traumatic? Did it reveal a psychological vulnerability? It revealed a perspective, Xyloc answered carefully. A viewpoint on the value of life that is incongruous with a cooperative social species. We have no time for philosophical nuance. It showed a capacity for detached cruelty. Not rage-fueled, not born of fear, but a calm, observational cruelty. A curiosity about the cessation of life. Supervisor, this is not the psychology of a prey animal. This is the mark of a predator. A long silence stretched over the comm. The Glirin had encountered predatory species before. The galaxy was rife with them. But they were typically straightforward, driven by hunger and instinct. Their minds were sharp, focused, and transparent in their intent. You could reason with them on a cost-benefit basis. But this was cold. This was different. That is a significant claim, Xyloc, Kalen said finally, its voice a low thrum of warning. Predatory species do not typically develop advanced technology and cooperative societies on this scale. The inherent aggression is self-limiting. They fracture. They self-destruct. Are you certain you are not misinterpreting a cultural artifact? I do not believe so, Xyloc replied, its confidence returning, albeit laced with a new and unfamiliar dread. The memory felt foundational, an axiom of its being, and the subject offered it to me. It wanted me to see it. That is what I cannot understand. Your work, Kalen ordered, its voice hard as fired ceramic. Ignore the offerings. Dig for the data. Use a more aggressive resonance frequency. If the subject's mind is a placid ocean, then boil it. Comm cut out. Xyloc looked at the still, silent form on the couch. Elias Thorne had not moved. His eyes were closed, his face a mask of utter tranquility. But Xyloc could see him differently now. The placid ocean was a facade. and beneath the surface, something vast and ancient and utterly without pity was stirring. The human wasn't waiting for them to get tired. It was waiting for them to understand. And Xyloc was beginning to suspect that understanding would be a far worse fate than ignorance. For the next several cycles, Xyloc obeyed. It pushed the probe's intensity, forsaking the delicate, exploratory frequencies for a brutal, piercing resonance designed to shatter mental defenses. The hum in the chamber climbed to an almost painful whine. The filaments above Thorn's head glowed with a fierce, white light. To Xyloc's astonishment, the human mind still did not resist. It did not break. It simply opened wider. The gentle currents that had guided Xyloc before became a torrent, a flood. Thorn was no longer offering curated memories. He was force-feeding the Glirin the raw, unfiltered essence of human history, philosophy, and art. All of it threaded through with the same disquieting axiom of predation. Xyloc was dragged through a whirlwind of experiences that were not Thorn's own, but were part of his cultural inheritance, his species' collective memory. It was forced to witness the building of the Great Pyramids, not as an architectural marvel, but through the eyes of a slave, feeling the crushing weight of the stone, the lash on his back, and the utter disposability of his life in the service of a pharaoh's ego. It felt the exultation of a Roman legionary as his gladius slid between a barbarian's ribs, the spray of hot blood a baptism of victory. It was a scholar in the library of Alexandria as the flames climbed the scrolls, feeling not just the loss of knowledge, but the malicious glee of the mob, the joyous, ecstatic destruction of something beautiful for the sake of its destruction. Kalen's demands for reports became more frequent, more insistent. Xyloc's replies grew more fractured. "Supervisor, I have found no star charts, no weapon schematics." "Have you found, Xyloc? Your biosigns are erratic. The harmonics of your skin are bordering on distress signals." "Am analyzing their cultural records. Their history. It is a litany of conflict, not the simple territorial disputes of young species or resource wars. This is ideological. They create abstract concepts, honor, faith, nation, race, and then they slaughter each other by the millions to prove the supremacy of one abstraction over another. They are the only species we have ever encountered whose primary catalyst for intraspecies warfare is disagreement over unverifiable beliefs." "A flaw," Kalen stated flatly. "A weakness we can exploit." "Is it?" Xyloc's chimes were discordant. "Or is it a strength? Their capacity for belief is so strong it allows them to override the fundamental instinct for self-preservation. They will march into machine gun fire for a flag. They will burn themselves alive for a god. How do you fight a species that does not fear death if the narrative is compelling enough?" The probe pushed deeper, and the torrent became a maelstrom. Xyloc was no longer an observer. It was a participant. It was forced to feel the cold, righteous fury of an inquisitor branding a heretic, the conviction that the searing of flesh was an act of love, of purification. It felt the chilling, bureaucratic detachment of a camp commandant signing extermination orders. The numbers on the page completely divorced from the reality of the lives they represented. It was a scientist in a hidden lab, infecting a test subject with a bioweapon, watching the agony with a notebook in hand, all in the name of national security. The malice was not always hot and hateful. Sometimes it was cold, calculating, and worst of all, reasonable. It was malice in the name of progress, malice in the name of security, malice in the name of the greater good. Xyloc began to see the pattern. Humanity had spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of killing each other. Their tools, their societies, their philosophies, they were all forged in the crucible of endless war. They had no true external predators on their home world. They had filled the vacancy themselves. During one of the brief respites between sessions, as the machine powered down and the silence in the chamber returned to its heavy, waiting state, Xyloc confronted Kalen in the observation room. The supervisor's pearl-white skin was smooth and placid, a stark contrast to Xyloc's own flickering, nauseous green-gray patterns. "We must terminate the interrogation," Xyloc stated, foregoing all protocol. Kalen turned slowly, its 4 eyes fixing on the interrogator. "On what grounds have you retrieved the data? The data is irrelevant." Xyloc's voice rose, a series of frantic, clashing chimes. "You are not understanding. We are not probing a prisoner." We are communing with a disease. Language is overwrought, Zylok. Your empathy is corrupting your analysis. It is a biological organism. It has weaknesses. Its weakness is its strength, Zylok insisted, its limbs trembling. We Glirin evolved in an environment of total cooperation. Our consciousness is linked. We achieve consensus. We resolve conflict through shared understanding. Our defining trait is empathy. It is the foundation of our civilization, Kalen agreed, a note of pride in its voice. And it is the perfect vector for this contagion. The human is not just showing me things, it is teaching me. It is instilling concepts for which we have no defense because we have no context. Suspicion, deceit, resentment. Zylok gestured wildly at the shadowy pane separating them from Thorn's chamber. It showed me the concept of a scapegoat. The selection of one individual to bear the collective sins of the group, to be punished in their stead to create a sense of catharsis and unity. An idea so monstrous, so illogical, it has no place in Glirin thought. And yet, I now understand it. I can see the utility in it. Kalen's smooth skin flickered for the first time, a brief, faint mottling of violet. Be careful, Zylok, that sounds close to ideological contamination. It is contamination, Zylok shrieked. The human mind, its malice, it is a mimetic virus. It is designed to replicate in minds that can comprehend it. And our empathy, our ability to see from another's perspective, makes us exquisitely vulnerable. It's using me, our technology, as a bridge. It's trying to infect the Glirin consensus. Is impossible, Kalen said, but the certainty in its voice had frayed. The consensus is a harmony of billions of minds. The discordant thoughts of one contaminated individual would be smoothed out, corrected. Would they? Zylok moved closer to the pane, staring at the still figure of Elias Thorn. The thoughts it is planting are not simple discord. They are elegant, self-replicating paradoxes. It showed me envy, not just wanting what another has, but wanting the other not to have it. It's an idea that creates conflict from nothing. It showed me the pleasure of schadenfreude, of taking joy in the suffering of others. How does a cooperative consciousness defend itself against the logic of pure, unadulterated spite? These are not mere data points, Kalen. They are axioms of a different kind of existence, a predatory existence. We think we are interrogating a prisoner. But I tell you, that thing on the couch is an apex predator the likes of which this galaxy has never seen. Its teeth are not on its jaws, they are in its mind. Was silent for a long time, its gaze fixed on the human. The logic was sound in a terrifying way. The Glirins' greatest strength, their unity, their empathy, would be their greatest vulnerability to a mimetic weapon. An idea could be more devastating than a fleet of warships. What does it want? Kalen asked, its voice barely a whisper. It wants to be understood, Zylok replied, its skin now a solid, dull, deathly gray. It wants us to see it, truly see it for what it is. And I believe that when we do, that is when the lesson begins. Considered this. The risk was immense, but the potential reward, the location of a new, aggressive species, the chance to neutralize a threat before it could spread, was also immense. The High Concordance would not accept fear of ideas as a reason for failure. Their logic was rigid. One more session, Zylok, Kalen commanded, its voice regaining its steel. A full-spectrum, maximum-intensity probe. We will not be led, we will not be taught. We will rip the information from its core, and then we will sterilize the subject and this entire facility. Go, now, looked from its supervisor to the human. It felt a coldness that had nothing to do with the station's life support. It was a coldness of the soul, a concept it had only learned from the human mind. It knew, with a certainty that transcended logic, that it was walking into a trap. But it was a soldier, and it had its orders. It returned to its console, its movements stiff, bereft of their usual grace. The colors on its skin were gone, replaced by a uniform, stony gray. It initiated the sequence for the final time. The hum in the chamber rose to a piercing shriek. The light from the filaments was blindingly bright, casting stark, dancing shadows across the room. The full, unrestrained power of the empathic resonance probe slammed into Elias Thorn's mind. And this time, something was different. The torrent of historical data was gone. The curated memories, the philosophical lessons, all of it vanished. For a terrifying moment, Zylok found itself in a void. A perfect, silent, black emptiness. There was nothing here. No thought, no sensation, no memory, only a single terrifying point of awareness, Thorne's awareness. And it was looking back. The gentleness was gone. The placid ocean had frozen into a sheet of black ice, and Xyloc was skating on its surface. The human mind was no longer inviting it in. It was reaching out. Thorne did not show Xyloc another piece of human history. He did not teach it another alien concept. He showed Xyloc itself. He took the Glirin's own nature, its empathy, its need for consensus, its gentle logic, and showed it how to turn it into a weapon. He presented a simulation, a thought experiment so vivid it was indistinguishable from reality. He showed Xyloc how to fake the emotional patterns on its skin, how to project a false sense of calm while feeling alarm. He taught it how to introduce a subtle, questioning dissonance into the collective consciousness, a seed of doubt so small it would be dismissed as a statistical anomaly, but so persistent it would gnaw at the edges of consensus. He showed it how to identify another Glirin's minor insecurities, a fear of inadequacy, a subtle jealousy over a colleague's success, and how to subtly amplify them through empathic feedback loops, turning minor anxieties into corrosive paranoia. He gave Xyloc the blueprint for Glirin betrayal. He wasn't showing it what humanity was. He was showing it what the Glirin could become. He was holding up a mirror, and in it, Xyloc saw not the face of a human but its own, twisted into a mask of cold, calculating ambition. The potential was there. It had always been there. It just took a predator to point it out. It was a gift of pure poison, wrapped in the logic of self-interest. The psychic pressure was unbearable. Xyloc felt its own mind begin to fracture, the clean lines of its logic warping under the strain. The mimetic contagion it had feared was not just a possibility, it was happening. Thorne had weaponized its own empathy against it, turning its most cherished trait into an instrument of self-destruction. The link, the machine, was a two-way street. Elias Thorne felt the final, shattering wave of the alien's terror. He felt the elegant, crystalline structure of its mind crumble into a cascade of screaming, illogical shards. He had shown it the abyss and it had thrown itself in. His part was done. With a final, monumental effort of will, Thorne retracted his consciousness, pulling it back from the void, back from the shattered mind of his interrogator and into the confines of his own skull. The shriek of the machine died. The blinding light faded. The heavy, weighted silence of the chamber returned. For the first time since his capture, Elias Thorne opened his eyes. They were a pale, washed-out blue, as cold and empty as a winter sky. He slowly, deliberately, lifted his head from the restraint couch, the movement impossibly smooth, and focused his gaze on the trembling, six-limbed creature standing at the console. He saw the utter, soul-deep horror reflected in its four wide, dark eyes. He saw the chaotic, meaningless flashes of color on its skin, a language that had lost its grammar. A small, thin smile touched Thorne's lips. His voice, when it came, was dry and raspy from disuse, but it filled the silence of the room with an unnerving clarity. "You really have no idea, do you?" he said, his tone conversational, almost pitying. "About the bottomless malice within the human heart." Effect of the words was galvanic. A sound tore from Xyloc's throat, not the melodic chimes of Glirin's speech, but a raw, high-pitched screech of pure animal terror. It was a sound of prey, a sound of death. It clawed at the crystalline crown on its own head, ripping the neural interface free with a shower of sparks and a sickening tear of flesh. It paid the wound no mind. It turned and fled the room, its graceful limbs scrambling in a clumsy, panicked flight, its screams echoing down the sterile white corridor. It babbled about a pattern, a seed, a contagion that wasn't in the data but in the logic, a way of thinking that was a self-replicating weapon. Minutes later, the door hissed open and Supervisor Kalen entered, its movements brisk and authoritative. It took in the scene at a glance. The damaged console, the flecks of alien blood, and the human sitting up on the couch, watching it with those dead, patient eyes. "What happened?" Kalen demanded, its voice sharp, though its skin betrayed it with a nervous flicker of violet. "What did you do to it?" Elias Thorne said nothing. He simply continued to watch, his faint, chilling smile never leaving his face. Kalen activated its wrist comm. "Security to Interrogation Chamber 1. The interrogator is compromised. Subdue the subject. Maximum restraint." Turned its back on Thorne, striding out of the chamber to find Xyloc. It found the interrogator huddled in a corner of the observation room, rocking back and forth, its limbs wrapped around itself. Its skin was a uniform, horrifying black, a color with no meaning in the Glirin emotional spectrum. It was the color of a void. "Xyloc," Kalen snapped. "Report, what did it show you?" Xyloc looked up, and its eyes were voids, too. "A better way," it whispered in a broken series of chimes. "A more efficient way. Consensus is slow. Empathy is a vulnerability. Dominance is clarity." A cold dread, absolute and profound, washed over Kalen. This was not just a traumatized officer. This was a fundamental corruption. The mimetic virus was real. Suddenly, the lights in the corridor flickered and died, plunging them into the dim, red glow of emergency lighting. An automated voice, calm and synthesized, echoed through the facility. "Caution! Cognitive hazard detected in primary consensus network. Isolating Sector Gamma." Kalen's blood ran cold. Sector Gamma was the entire command wing. The network Thorn hadn't just infected Xyloc. Xyloc, in its terror, had reconnected with the local network, seeking the comfort of the collective. It had become the typhoid Mary of a psychic plague. "All personnel," Kalen broadcasted, its voice tight with rising panic. "Disconnect from the consensus immediately." Acknowledge. There was no response, only silence. Then, from the comm, a new sound. It was the muffled sound of a struggle from the security post. A cry of pain followed by a wet final sound. Another alert chimed through the station. "Warning. Life support malfunction on Deck 3. Atmospheric controls unresponsive." Stared down the red-lit corridor. The silence was spreading. It was not the silence of an empty station, but the silence of a held breath, of hunters stalking each other in the dark. The guards sent to subdue Thorn never arrived. The commands it issued went unanswered. The Glirans' greatest strength, their shared consciousness, had become a superhighway for the most virulent pathogen they had ever encountered: human thought. They were a species built on trust, and Thorn had taught them how to lie. They were a species built on harmony, and he had taught them the sweet, clarifying logic of hate. Standing in the crimson twilight of the dying station, Kalen finally understood. They had not captured a prisoner. They had opened a Pandora's box. And the last thing to fly out was not hope. It was a mirror. Within 3 hours, the station's transponder, a beacon of Glirin order in a quiet sector of space, ceased its broadcast. The life support systems failed in cascading succession. The hum of technology died. The great, silent black site facility, a monument to Glirin intelligence and control, went completely and utterly dark. It floated in the void, a tomb not of bodies but of minds, containing only the echo of a single, terrifying truth. And inside, sitting calmly in the absolute darkness, a lone human agent waited for his ride home, knowing his mission was a success. He had shown them the bottomless malice within the human heart, and it had consumed them whole. The silence that followed was his true report.